We are nearing the end of my Christopher Nolan review series, and today let's talk about The Dark Knight Rises. After Batman assumes responsibility for Harvey Dent's death, Batman lays low, but when a terrorist named Bane comes, he forces Batman out of exile for the ultimate battle. I am such a huge fan of this trilogy, and I think this is also just a really amazing finale for what the trilogy has given us so far. I think Christopher Nolan nailed it with this one as well. The first thing that I want to talk about with this movie, and that I notice instantly when I start watching it, is the difference in tone, especially with Batman and Bruce Wayne's character. You can really tell how broken they are and how sad they are. It's funny how I say they, even though it's one character. But, I think you guys get what I mean. And from, the beginnings, you really see that he is a completely different version of the character we've been accustomed to in Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. And I loved that. I love seeing superheroes and protagonists who are really strong show weakness. And this character hasn't been one that has been deemed as perfect in these movies, which is something that I've always really liked. In the first movie, we see that he's really scared of bats. He uses his fear as a way to come on top. So this is a very interesting character, but we've never seen him in this sort of light, and it's really shocking. I remember when I watched it for the first time, I was just shook at how worn down he was, but I feel like that's really important to show in a movie because not every single day is going to be a good day, and I think his character is really, really good in this movie. And speaking of him being broken, it's clearly because of everything that has happened in the movies prior to this, and I loved that this movie, it didn't ignore what happened in The Dark Knight. This movie, I believe, takes place 8 years after The Dark Knight, and you can see all the characters that we've grown to love deal with the consequences of that movie and the climax and the ending of it. And I thought that was really fabulous because even 8 years after, they're still dealing with it. That means it was a really big shock for them. And you even see that with Commissioner Gordon, which is one of my favorite characters in this trilogy. He's very broken down by this. He's somebody that's very connected to Batman, and to see him so low as well was very different for these movies and something that I also feel was needed. Clearly, this is called The Dark Knight Rises, and obviously Batman needs something to rise, and in this case, it's Bane. And Bane was played amazingly by Tom Hardy. I really liked his performance, and I also really liked that we could see his eyes. I know that in the original comics, it was, I think, a covered-up mask, and you couldn't see his eyes, and I really liked that because you got a lot of expression. My one negative with Bane was his voice. It's not that I'm not a fan of his voice, it's just confusing to hear. I'm a person that likes to watch movies with subtitles anyway, but if I didn't have the subtitles, I feel like I wouldn't have understood much of what he said, and I feel like it takes some getting used to, and definitely it's not my favorite thing, but it's not the worst thing in the world. It's very scary and menacing, but also I wish it was just a little tiny bit clearer so I could understand a little bit more. But either way, I watch with subtitles, so it's fine. We get a new character here in Catwoman, played by Anne Hathaway, and she plays Catwoman amazingly. I love Catwoman in this movie, and her and Bruce and the interaction she has with other characters. A scene I really like with Catwoman and Bruce Wayne, they're at a masquerade ball dance type situation, and everybody's wearing a mask except Bruce Wayne. And I don't know why, but I've always really liked that scene because everybody around him was wearing a mask except him. And it to me at least, it shows that Bruce Wayne is his mask and his true form is Batman, or he's always showing a different persona to people. And I thought that was really good, that juxtaposition of not wearing a mask while everybody around you is masked and, hidden. I really, really liked that, and also it's ironic that he's basically hidden in plain sight in a way. I just really thought that entire scene was brilliant. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is also in this movie, and he's really good as well. I really liked what they did with his character. Amazing. I also really like the ending of this movie, especially with Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character. I like that they introduced new characters, but they didn't push them to the side, or they didn't give it too much attention. Sometimes in movies, when they introduce new characters, they put too much on them, and you're like, oh, but come on, I want to go back to the other ones because you're not as accustomed to them. But I really like the new characters that they brought for this trilogy. I thought they were all great, and none of them felt out of place. I do have some problems with this movie, and they're very minimal. One of them, like I said, is me nitpicking Bane's voice. But I feel like this movie just feels really long. And I'm one that actually likes long movies. I don't really get bored with them. But I feel like this is the one movie out of this trilogy that I can feel the 2 hours and 40 minutes. This movie is nearly 3 hours, and I feel like you could feel that. And I believe it was second or third act where I was kind of getting a little bit bored, and that's just my personal opinion. And I felt like this movie also lacked in Batman, which is kind of weird because this is a Batman movie, and I feel like for a lot of the movie Batman was, you know, laying low, which I think, like I said, I was totally fine with. But I feel like that whole his weakness was going on for too long, and I wish they would have kind of cut it a little bit short. And I don't know, I think it would have made the movie a little bit more interesting. I am kind of hypocritical because I do think him being weak for a majority of the movie did make for a really awesome ending and a really awesome third act, but I feel like towards the middle I got a little bit bored, and I feel like they could have cut out maybe 15-20 minutes of this movie, and I would have been a little bit happier with that. This movie, like I said, is long. They have to, you know, tie a lot of things together, and I think Christopher Nolan is really good at that. He didn't really leave any unanswered stuff, in my opinion, but I feel like some characters could have had a little bit more to do, especially Alfred. I love Alfred. He's also one of my favorites, and I missed him a lot in this movie, and he was only there for a little bit, and then he just kind of didn't come out anymore, and I wish he would have been there. There were some really good scenes that I felt he was missing in, and he would have really made a great addition to. However, this movie has awesome plot twists, and it went in a direction I didn't expect, and that's some of my favorite things about movies in general, when they go in directions that I hadn't expected at all, and this one definitely does that. There are so many twists that just leave me shocked and in awe, and like I said, the direction of this movie is completely different than anything I ever thought, and like when you think you know something, you don't, and it changes and changes, and I loved that so much. Before I wrap up this review, something else I didn't really like or wasn't a fan of was how they ended the storyline of Bane. I personally wasn't that big a fan of that. This movie also has amazing action sequences. This movie is great at that, and Christopher Nolan proves that he's really good at directing action sequences and making them really interesting, and this one definitely does that. There were so many cool ones, especially towards the end. Like I said, it was very intense, and it like little war is happening in Gotham, and I thought it was so interesting. The stakes were very high, everything was so scary. It was a situation where you really didn't know if Bruce Wayne was going to make it out alive, which I thought was very interesting to have. And with that being said, I'm going to give this movie a B. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. If you guys were interested, my favorite out of the trilogy is The Dark Knight, then Batman Begins, and then this one, The Dark Knight Rises. I don't have anything against this one. This is still a really fun movie to watch. There's just some things here and there that I wish were done differently. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye!